welcome one and all to the PooderooPlays Kingdom Hearts series. Here we're going to take a deep dive into the lore of the franchise in a multi-part collection spanning every installment. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the truly fascinating universe of Kingdom Hearts.
Pardon. This is for Kingdom Hearts 3 and the ReMind DLC. It's the 11th installment, released for both the PlayStation 4 and, for the first time, the Xbox console. I was so jazzed! It was 2019 it was released. At the same time with another bundle that had come out at the same time, called the Story So Far bundle, which was all the previous games leading up to 3. But they had also released the all-in-one package that came with all the games together. Pardon. And the ReMind DLC came out early 2020, if I remember rightly. It serves as the final chapter in the Darkseeker saga, which is funny because just after the release of ReMind, they released Dark Road. It begins with a catch-up chapter called Kingdom Hearts 2.9. 2.9 is basically a cutscene that just catches you up the events at the end of Dream Drop Distance. Master Xehanort has returned, and Yensid plans to unite the 7 Guardians of Light to combat the 13 Darknesses. He wants to rescue the 3 missing wielders, Aqua, Terra, and Ventus. He wants to train a couple of other Keyblade users so that he can make 7 Guardians of Light. He's going to train Axel and Kairi to be Guardians of Light. Sora is told that he lost most of his strength that he had gained when Xehanort tried to take over him in Dream Drop Distance. So all the power that he had gotten through Kingdom Hearts 2 in the real world is now gone, and all the powers he had acquired during the Dream Worlds in Dream Drop Distance are also gone now just because Xehanort tried to suck on his soul a little bit like some kind of bald pixie-eared dementor. Riku and King Mickey have been dispatched to search the Dark Realm for Aqua because Mickey, after the events of Kingdom Hearts 2, Recoded, and Dream Drop Distance, suddenly remembers where she is. And he's like, yo, she's in the Dark Realm, and I just didn't tell you guys because you would go off and think you're strong enough to tackle the Dark Realm. So I betrayed my friend for the last decade, left her there to rot, and off back here in the Realm of Light where I took care of myself.
This meme made in the style of the KH3 in-game social media app sums it up hilariously.
Riku and Mickey go off to go get her from the Dark Realm, and Sora is tasked to try and get the power he didn't master in his Mark of Mastery exam in Dream Drop Distance, the power of waking. The reason why he needs the power of waking is to wake up Ventus, who, as we know, is asleep in the Land of Departure, which is now Castle Oblivion. Merlin is tasked to train Kairi and Axel in the ways of the Keyblade wielder. Sora needs to learn how to regain his strength, so logically he thinks, well, I know someone who lost all his strength and then got it back again. Hercules. Let's go to the Colosseum. But all the lanes between worlds have been closed, because that's what happens when you seal the keyholes in 2. His heart becomes his guiding key, and he uses his strength to teleport the gummy ship. That's the recap 2.9. The game starts here in Thebes, and the game is very pretty. But there's not much plot between here and the end of the game, and I had forgotten most of it apart from the ending. We're reminded of the cutscenes in Dream Drop Distance that depict the modern-day events in Radiant Garden, when Sora is contacted by Ienzo, who used to be Zexion in the Order, by his brand new fandangled gummy smartphone called the Gummy Phone. And then Ienzo calls them and is like, hi Sora, I used to be a bad guy, but now we're friends. It's just there to basically remind you that they woke up after having their hearts reunited in Kingdom Hearts 2. Bearing in mind this takes place like Kingdom Hearts 2 has just finished. It's a couple months after. So they woke up where they were struck down. What we saw in Dream Drop Distance, some of their members didn't come back because they never appeared where they originally split, at least not when these guys woke up. So when Ienzo, now back to being good, calls Sora on the gummy phone, he informs Sora that Sora carries with him the hearts of Ventus, Roxas, and Xion. Riku also relays that he's learned that the bad members of the organization are now using replicas. So Axel's theory was correct. They're using replicas to bring back Xemnas, Ansem the Darkseeker, Young Xehanort, Riku replica, and Vanitas. So these guys are all replicas now. Bearing in mind there's only 20 replicas that Vexen made, 12 of which sucked ass, one of which was used to make Riku replica in Chain of Memories.
Another of which was used to try and house Xion's personality during 358 over 2 days.
We're running out of replicas. And then this inspires Sora to get Roxas into the last replica. He's like, hey, I can make Roxas a person. They've done it with these guys. I'm gonna bring Roxas back. So where does he go? Twilight Town. And then when he gets there, he sees Hayna, Pence, and Olette running away from a demon tide. They defeat the Swarm, and the lads speak to the Twilight Town gang, and they question them about Roxas, who they don't really remember because it was just the digital versions of them that knew Roxas. They're like, why don't we go check out the virtual Twilight Town, created by Diz in number 2. So when Sora, Donald, and Goofy return to the real Twilight Town square, they're met by Ansem and Xemnas along the way. Ansem and Xemnas impart the wisdom that in order to free Roxas, Sora must become heartless again, so that Roxas can come out, because they still need a 13th vessel. They're basically rehashing the plan they had that led to Dream Drop Distance and failed. And then they disappear, leaving behind a small group of Heartless. That's all that happens in Twilight Town, and this is one of like 7 worlds you visit. So Sora is now fully determined to bring Roxas back, and he talks to the Twilight Town crew, again for some reason. Braig, Xemnas, and Ansem debate how obvious Xemnas and Ansem are being about this Roxas thing. They just say, oh, well, we'll just kill Sora if he deviates from the plan. And then Braig's like, no, we can't do that because we want Sora to be our 13th vessel.
Unnecessary cutscene. We already knew that.
You summed that up with the recap at the start of the game. Something we already knew from Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dream Drop Distance, even though Xemnas and Ansem already know what the plan is. Braig sits there and outlines the plan to them. I didn't realise he was the Kingdom Hearts equivalent of the little paperclip that used to pop up in the corner and remind you of shit to do on your laptop. I didn't realise that he was the Windows Notification Center member of the organisation. Ansem, the Seeker Ansem, returns to the Realm of Darkness to retrieve Diz, because we saw that he is still alive. As bad Ansem tries to take good Ansem away, Aqua intervenes. She throws herself in, it's like, no, don't take my friend! And then the dark figure that Ansem always has around him, she gets her ass handed to her by him. And then good Ansem is like, no, please, don't kill her. I will go willingly if you don't. And then bad Ansem takes him, is like, cool, opens up the portal, then grabs Aqua and throws her into the water, where she sinks and becomes overwhelmed by darkness. And she becomes anti-Aqua, who's actually pretty hot. And suddenly, Vexen, aka Evan, rescues good Ansem and reveals he's actually been a good dude the whole time and is still loyal to good Ansem. Meanwhile, Riku and Mickey are also in the Dark Realm. They do it twice. I don't remember in the order that this happens, but at one point they go to the Realm of Darkness and it proves too powerful and it snaps Riku's Keyblade. So then he has a moment of being like, am I worthy? Will I go on the path of good or bad? What if I succumb again? Reinforcing that whole fucking thing we know about Riku anyway, and he has already proven multiple times that Ansem the Dark Seeker doesn't have a hold on him anymore. Despite the fact he's a Keyblade Master now. He took his Mark of Mastery exam in Dream Drop Distance and fucking succeeded when Sora almost died, and he's still sitting there going, I wonder if I'm gonna be a good guy or succumb to the badness again. Am I truly worthy of a Keyblade? And then Mickey's like, dude, yeah, you are. Let's go get you another one. So they go back to the mysterious tower where they meet up with Sora, Donald, and Goofy. And then they get their new sick duds. And Sora, Donald, and Goofy have just come back from Olympus Coliseum Land at this point, and they get their new sick duds, which are in these like really cool suitcases that are the same color as like the clothes that person will be wearing.
Square Enix even released a series of similar-looking suitcases and carry-on luggage in June 2022. They were each themed after Axel, Kairi, Sora, Riku, and Mickey.
Riku gets this new badass Keyblade. And then they go back to the Dark Realm. They go to rescue Aqua again, at the same time that Sora discovers Ericus's old Keyblade that Aqua ended up taking on the Sands of Destiny Islands. Bearing in mind the Sands of Destiny Islands, that ocean leads to the dark margin. And he arrives just in time to save Riku and Mickey from getting their asses handed to them by Anti-Aqua and a whole stream of demon tides. And like, I don't know if that bonked her in the head enough to banish her darkness, but then she turns into normal Aqua again. But then she leads the gang to Castle Oblivion, which is also in the Realm of Darkness mind. And then she reverts it back to the Land of Departure and goes to rescue Ventus. As she walks through the door, she is immediately attacked by Vanitas, who, even though they never knew where the Chamber of Waking was, Vanitas was just in there anyway. But Sora suddenly grows a sack of testicles and discovers the power of waking. He just, in that moment, he's like, oh, that's how I do it, and he wakes up Ventus. He's just suddenly like, ah, cold water in a cup, that's how you wake someone up. Ah, an air horn next to their ear, yeah, that's how you do it. He just suddenly remembers the power of waking he technically never learned in Dream Drop Distance. And he wakes up Ventus, who then immediately starts battling Vanitas, and it is actually a really cool battle. He kicks his own darkness's ass that wasn't his own darkness. Sora, Riku, Aqua, Ventus, Kairi, and Mickey head to the original Keyblade graveyard where they go to fight the organization. Terranaut hits them with a demon tide that pretty much TPKs the high a lot. And it basically wipes Sora from existence. Like, it kills him, and then he has to run around and recollect parts of his body in a place called the Final World, where he meets Chirithy and a star that can talk. It's a very important star. It becomes very important later on. He meets Ephema, and then he eventually fades. That's like his last goodbyes. He's like, hey Sora, have this. Ephema basically dips out and bequeaths Chirithy to Sora, which he does do, but he was basically just like, peace out, but leaving Sora to care for his Chirithy, but in his heart or something. He's basically like, Sora, always keep my Chirithy with you. In your heart, not physically. He's trapped here forever, and then just peace out. Just freaking boop. He's gone. And when Sora comes back, he's fighting the Demon Tide, surfing on some Keyblades, and it's apparently the spirit of everyone who died in the Keyblade graveyard during the Keyblade War. These are all their Keyblades. But while he's doing that, all the names of the Keyblades of the players that belong to pops up in the screen and scrolls like credits. But that would then mean all their players canonically died during the first Keyblade War and weren't the one player who gets revived and goes on to mentor Xehanort. Sora brings his homies back from the brink of death because Donald basically annihilates himself with a spell. He puts his entire
Dakusi
into this one spell. Goofy's like, Donald, no! Donald's just like, Wah! And shoots these f***ing fireworks out. And then he like rolls down afterwards like, ah. Sora gets everybody back, and the entire group head on to face the real organization. Young Xehanort then slaps Sora on the wrist for using his Special Boy power. And he's like, Sora, if you use this power again, you will die. And Sora's just like, well, f*** you, young Xehanort. You're young and old at the same time. What the f*** do you know, you time-traveling wizard? Everybody ignores this, and they annihilate the organization so quickly. Like, this was heading to the end of the game, and I was like, this is going to be a really hard battle. You split off into groups where you have a bunch of battles. I must admit, the one featuring Marluxia was difficult. All the rest of the battles were so easy. And you basically just wipe out the organization. As you do this, as separate groups, a bunch of realizations start happening. It's revealed that Terra's heart is the dark figure that Ansem the Darkseeker has been using to protect himself. In this awesome brutal cutscene, it rips off the bandages around its mouth and speaks, and it's Terra. And his heart reunites with his body, forcing the Xehanort that's in there out, and he becomes Terra again. And he reunites with Aqua Inventus, and it is really cool. Meanwhile, because you don't find out to the ReMind DLC, I have to say this now to explain why Shion is there. There had been a cutscene at one point where Xehanort discusses who's left as vessels. They were using the replicas to put their old allies into new bodies to have them eventually become vessels for Xehanort. But Shion is gone. The reason why they managed to bring her back is because she's still in Vexen's logs as data. So he basically just transfers that into the replica. And the reason why her name is Shion is because she's number 1 with an X in it. That's why her name is technically Noi. So Noi comes back because she is the last replica they hadn't used yet. She immediately goes for Axel and tries to kill him. She's handing Axel his ass. When Sora is helping him, Roxas speaks from inside Sora and is like, hey, Shion! People start remembering her, so it brings her back. So now there's 1,000,001 Guardians of Light. They're kicking the organization's ass. So Xehanort's like, right, I'm gonna dwindle their forces, and he kills Kairi. He's just like... So Sora attacks him, which causes Xehanort to be able to forge the Kai Blade. And he summons Kingdom Hearts. Sora, Donald, and Goofy just kick him back to his childhood. Not necessarily his childhood, but his childhood home. They end up in Scala at Calum, where they fight replica ghost things. Xehanort finally took over the vessels. Because they're not ghosts. They're replica Xehanorts. But the only way they could be replica Xehanorts is if he actually took over the vessels finally. They each fight like a member of the organization. They merge into Xehanort's Keyblade armor, which was a really cool concept. You're just like, oh, so you are literally an old goat. And then you face off through a 6-stage boss battle. You go through like a battle of him being pure Xehanort, like, I'm out of my armor, here's all my magic. You beat him through that. There's like another stage left after that where you're essentially just hitting an old man with a Keyblade. Then the other Guardians finally join the trio. Erica's heart bursts out of terror and convinces Xehanort to surrender. And then the two walk off into the sunset, despite the fact that Erica should actually be headbutting this guy. His best friend his entire life was the one who ended up killing him and then blamed it on his student. They close Kingdom Hearts, and then Sora turns his attention to bringing Kairi back. So he uses the power of waking one last time to bring her back, but young Xehanort, who had warned him, ends up getting the last laugh, because he'd been like, if you use this again, you die. And that's exactly what happens. Sora's heart is lost as he begins to fade, but he promises to return, and Kairi comes back. As the ending begins, Ventus, Aqua, and Terra return to the land of departure, where Ventus gets Chirithy. Axel, Roxas, and Shion return to the tower in Twilight Town and have their sea salt ice cream.
There is also a scene where Naminé is brought back in a new replica by Evan, Aenzo, and Ansem. She is then picked up by Riku and Mickey in the gummy ship, and brought to Destiny Islands. Here, everyone can be seen hanging out together and playing around, finally all in one place. It finally seems like everything will be okay, until we see Sora and Kairi.
And then Sora's friends all surround him on Destiny Islands, as Kairi and him sit next to one another, and he fades. Meanwhile, back at the Keyblade graveyard, Xigbar, who is Braig, remember, is still alive. And he picks up the no-name Keyblade from where Xehanort fell. He summons the Foretellers, the original Keyblade Masters, and he reveals to them he has been Luxu the entire time. We knew something was going on with Luxu at the end of Union X, when he takes his hood down and it's Brain underneath. And at the end of Dark Road, it's Bragi. And then in Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance, it's Braig. But now he's Xigbar, who had actually been an incarnation of Luxu the entire time. Maleficent is perving on them with Pete from, like, the background, because he has revealed the location of the secret black box that he buried as Luxu in the Keyblade graveyard at the end of Union back cover. He's come with that box, and Maleficent was after that black box. That was the only reason why she was in Kingdom Hearts 3. She even goes to Hades, and they dig up Pandora's box. Roll credits. That's Kingdom Hearts 3. This is Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMind. It continues the story a little bit, I guess. It also retcons a lot of what we've just witnessed. It begins in Thebes with Maleficent and Pete digging for the black box. And it starts with Xigbar watching them do it, and Luxord appears before him and talks about the old tale of the white goat versus the black goat. Albert and Aeta, basically. He regales this old ancient tale that had been foretold, this prophecy, which ends up coming true. And he tells Xigbar that he has suspicions about him, because he's been looking for this black box, Luxord, and he asked Xemnas. Xemnas never gave the order for people to find the black box. Xigbar gave the order for people in the organization to look for the black box. So which Luxord is like, I think you've got a secret tied to this box and you're not telling anyone. He asks Xigbar who he really is, which foreshadows what we already know. Then we get a flashback to young Xehanort in the Keyblade graveyard when he confronts the Master of Masters, when he finds out most people just have darkness in them anyway. He first says that he'll see what happens after his Mark of Mastery exam, whether he'll take the good path or the bad path. And the Master's basically like, the result doesn't matter because you've already decided what you're going to do. Xehanort's like, dude, how do you know all this stuff? Who are you really? The Master reveals to him that he is one of the lost masters from ancient lore. In the present day, Xehanort is reliving this with Saix and Xigbar. And then Xigbar's like, dude, we should really be concentrating on getting your 13 vessels back up to snuff, you know what I mean? So they list off the current active vessels, which is Luxord, Larxene, Marluxia, themselves, and that they're old allies who are now in replicas. Ansem, Xemnas, Riku, replica, Vanitas, and young Xehanort. And obviously, Xehanort himself, which makes 11. Xehanort is like, what about Terranort also? And then Saix brings up the idea of bringing back Shion. So now we cut to events later in the game, just after Sora has essentially clubbed an old geezer with a blunt metal key. He uses the power of waking to return to the final world. Chirithy guides him in restoring Kairi's heart by picking up fragments of her. But Chirithy's like, dude, you're gonna die. You've abused this power. You're gonna fade if you're not careful. Sora ignores it and goes to the crack in time that he's created. Chirithy tells him that he must travel through the Guardians of Light's hearts, experiencing their own trauma and torment until he reaches Kairi's. Yeah, that makes sense. First, Sora goes through the original battle that Aquaterra and Ventus lose against Xehanort and Vanitas from Birth by Sleep. Then he has to rescue Ventus. The darkness in him manifests itself as Dark Inferno X, or Dark Inferno Kai. And then after whooping its ass, Sora enters Aqua's heart, where he then battles Anti-Aqua, years before she actually becomes Anti-Aqua. And then he comes to his own personal station of calling, where Naminé tells him she's brought Terra's strongest thoughts with her, whatever the fuck that means. Now, he experiences the battle against Terranort that gets lost, and then Terra's part of that. And then when Terranaut battles the Lingering Will, and then Sora jumps in to save the Lingering Will from Terranaut, and then the Lingering Will sacrifices itself to save Sora. It's like that meme of the guy's shooting the bullet and his friend jumps in front of him, so his friend who's about to get shot bends around him, and then they bend around each other. It's like, no! And so Sora has to solo Terranaut. He's grabbed by the dark figure, who we know is actually Terra, or at least Terra's heart, trapped inside this body. And then he's sent into his own past where he battles the real Organization 13 at the Keyblade Graveyard, while his future self hides inside Terra until he's restored. Once he is restored, you can see Sora in his heart, and then he walks into Roxas. He witnesses Xion come back. Sora agrees to help Xion, Roxas, and I think Axel recover their recussant sigils from Xemnas, and then jumps back into his past self. When Kairi is dead, Mickey informs Sora that Xehanort didn't actually kill her, he crystallized her, and that there was still time to save her. So he then jumps through the portal of Xehanort's past ahead of his past self. You know what, I'm going to call them ReMind and Main Game. So ReMind jumps in before Main Game, starts collecting pieces of Kairi's heart to put her back together again. When he's collected 5 fragments, Xehanort pops up and was like, dude, I actually split her into 7. Haha. And then jumps to where Main Game then appears through the portal. So Xehanort has to go battle Main Game, while ReMind is kind of chilling inside Main Game like, I need to find those last 2 fragments while Main Game battles Xehanort. I know how this ends, but I need to make it end that way. ReMind then jumps into Riku when the group are battling the replica Xehanorts, until they're all sucked into keyhole-shaped holes, besides Mickey, who ReMind Sora then jumps into and helps him fight off the replicas. Then Sora finds the last fragments of Kairi's heart, and then daisy chains a connection through all the Guardians' hearts back to her, and fixes her right up. And then the replica Xehanorts merge into the armored Xehanort, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy destroy him, and the Guardians of the Galaxy then discuss why Sora and Kairi aren't there when they decide to go to the portal to Scarlet Kalam's past, where Main Game Sora is. He's just had his final battle with Xehanort. That's when Sora does the whole, in Main Game, bringing Kairi back to life thing. It never had anything to actually do with him. It was him in the future coming back to the past. Sora and Kairi are in the final world where they invite Chirithy to come back to the real world, which is why Chirithy ends up with Ventus. Then they get to watch Ventus and Chirithy be like, oh yay! And then they get to watch all the Guardians go home. And then they get to watch Naminé become a whole person. Then Sora and Kairi sit on a Palpu tree and Sora fades away. Then we have the whole scene with Xigbar in the graveyard, and then we get the flashback to Ericus and Xehanort's past where they play the chess piece. You would think that was the end, just a nice little retcon of all the stuff they had already worked on. No. They take it further. After this scene, it cuts to Sora and Riku wandering around a real-world city from the game Virum Rex that we saw in Toy Story. This has been the most infuriating project I've ever worked on. Taken a long time. And then when I finally got to this stage in the recording process, a bunch of the videos had corrupted. So it's reshoot time, baby! Do you like my custom pop filter that I made out of a kitchen sponge? The rim looks different, I look different. You may see a furry tail, not from me. I have 3 cats. A lot's changed since I filmed the original videos. So yeah, I'm having to reshoot a whole bunch of videos. I got right into the end, and then it just cuts as I'm talking about quadratum, quadraphonics, quadramania. The video corrupted. But anyway. The scene cuts to Sora and Riku wandering around a real world. It looks hyper-realistic. It looks like it could be Tokyo or Osaka or Kyoto, and it's from the Virum Rex game from the Toy Story world. Above the two of them, Yuzora, who was that guy the toys at Toy Story Land thought Sora was. And he's looking down at them menacingly. I'm guessing Yuzora will actually be a good guy. The scene cuts again to the Master of Masters standing atop another building, staring at the moon. And he gets his hands, he does this on the moon. We assume it's the Master of Masters. It might not actually be the Master of Masters, but it's like the only other guy who has a black coat who hasn't been revealed yet. We have no idea where that guy is. He just left. He went to get milk, and he never returned. In the Limit Cut episode after this, we experience further events in the story with Riku. First, we see him travel to the Land of Departure, where he talks with Terra, Aqua, and Ventus. Terra tells Riku he's too strong, and that they can't teach him anymore. I kind of feel like Riku was like, even though I am a Keyblade Master and I passed my Mark of Mastery exam, I need to learn more. I need to be stronger. I feel like that's Riku's whole thing now, is he would be, because he was a survivor of some severe trauma. I feel like he hasn't quite realized that he is as powerful as, say, Aqua. He's certainly as powerful as Terra, but I feel like maybe he still doesn't really believe in himself as a Keyblade wielder, and that's why he's gone to the Land of Departure, and maybe he's trying to learn of a way to bring back Sora in the process. Aqua, Terra, and Ventus then leave him, and they summon their Keyblade armor, and they set off to the Dark Realm to look for Sora. Roughly a year later, Riku walks into Merlin's house in Radiant Garden to visit Sid, and see if they could work out where Sora has been this whole time. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are off in the worlds that Sora has been to throughout his entire journey of being a Keyblade wielder to see if they could find a clue. The Twilight Town kids have been studying Roxas and Shion's memories, the computer in the old mansion, and they're checking the Digiscape and the files on that computer to see if there's anything in their memories that might help them find Sora. Ow, hey! You don't have to claw me, man, chill! Oh. Right on my kneecap as well. Oh, the joys of cat parenthood is that my body is 95% scar tissue now. I look like when Deadpool takes the mask off. One of them at the moment is still a kitten. She's 4 months old, and the other two are a year and 4 months old, because they're almost exactly a year older than each other. But anyway, Kairi has been asleep in Ansem the Wise's lab in Radiant Garden, searching her memories, which is where we get the Melody of Memory game. That is set during the ReMind DLC. During this time that she's sleeping, Ansem and the organization members who are the scientists, so like Evan and Ienzo, but they're studying Kairi's heart while she's sleeping to also help. The person who makes the breakthrough is actually Sid. Sid mentions that he'd finally merged his data on his big computer in Merlin's house with the computers in Twilight Town in the old mansion and Ansem's computers in the research center. He managed to bring Sora back as Data Sora, but this isn't the same Data Sora from Mickey's computer. This is a new Data Sora. In a data garden of assemblage, KH 2.5 players know how fun the Garden of Assemblage was. Only this time you don't have the badass Cave of Remembrance to get through that had a banging soundtrack. He can't access any of the data because the digitally fully powered versions of the organization are preventing that from happening. Sid can't handle it, and then Riku kicks him off like, Mum says it's my turn on the Xbox, takes control of Data Sora, and has to destroy the data organization. Now, bearing in mind how tough that was in Kingdom Hearts 2.5, they do it again here. It's hard. The ReMind DLC was basically just a boss rush DLC with some story smattered about to keep you hanging on. Some of the hardest battles in Kingdom Hearts history, just to discover it was all for nothing. Leon and the gang have no more leads, and the data doesn't reveal anything. Riku's part of the ReMind DLC is completely worthless, apart from the ending. At the request of Merlin and Yensid, the fairy godmother appears to Riku, and he tells her about this recurring dream he's been having of waking up in this real-world city with Sora, seeing Yozora on top of the building. She then tells him that she can help with this dream he's been having, and that it may be the key to finding Sora. She then cryptically tells him that he could bring back Sora and the other two. Then we're shown Kairi asleep in Ansem's lab, and a shot of the final world. It cuts there. There's a secret ending. It's allegedly non-canon. Sora wakes up in the nighttime version of the final world, and he calls out, and he's answered by a young man who looks to be Yozora. Sora is shocked to see that there's this person here who looks like this video game character he once fought with. And Yozora says he's been tasked to save Sora somehow. But he questions whether Sora is in fact Sora, and apparently the only way to answer that question is to fight him. It's one of the hardest battles of the game. After Yozora is defeated, he disappears, and Sora winds up back in the daytime version of the final world. Meanwhile, Yozora is woken up in Quadratum by the driver of his limo, and he is referred to as Commander, and is asked whether he thinks that something that's off-screen is impressive. Sora and Yozora both wonder if what happened was real. I'm assuming when the fairy godmother said that she could help bring Sora back and the other two, she is referring to the nameless star, who I think is Strelitzia. But there's things that she says in Melody of Memory that hint that she might not be Strelitzia. Fairy Godmother, when she said the other two, I think is referring to the star and Ephema. I know we saw Ephema disappear Kingdom Hearts 3, but I can't think of a single other character it could be. What if it's the guy from the new Kingdom Hearts game coming out? I reckon the character from Missing Link is going to be playing a huge role in Kingdom Hearts lore. But anyway, that is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Thank you everybody so much for joining me as we explore the intriguing stories of the Kingdom Hearts franchise together. I have been your friendly neighborhood Pooderoo, and I hope you've had as much of a blast with this series as I did with making it. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye bye!